on the mug.
I don't think we've got much to say. Did you want to say a few words, or do you feel you've spoken a lot today?
I feel I've spoken quite a lot today, actually, but thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And look, we have elected an extraordinarily strong council this morning. We have 4 outstanding vice presidents to work alongside me for the next 4 years. And I am personally very, very proud that the target that we set ourselves of reaching gender equality in the council for 2027 should have been met 4 years earlier. We have some areas, of course, still to work on, and the executive board and our committees and commissions, all our working groups, but that's a really momentous step forward, and one that I really genuinely believe leads the world now in international sport, international sporting governance.
Okay, so over to you for questions. Just usual, put your hand up and we'll start at the front. Guess where you're from?
Thank you. It's Andrew Bear from Inside the Games.
I'm actually colourblind and I can see that tie.
Distinctive. Sure.
You don't actually have to stand up, so don't
but
worry.
thank you.
I'm standing up now. Congratulations on your re-election, which is obviously until 2027. There is an IOC presidential election coming up in 2025, so I'm wondering at this point, can you confirm if that's something you're interested in, and will it affect your World Aquatics presidential role should you run for that position? Thank you.
Did you say World Aquatics?
Athletics.
Do you want to start again?
Yeah,
I'll focus and you answer.
Yeah.
So
don't wish swimming on me, please.
no, you've been elected until 2027.
Yes.
And there's the IOC presidential election in 2025.
Oh, right, okay.
Are you able to confirm at this point if that's something you're interested in and if that will affect your...
Well, I can absolutely rule out the presidency of World Aquatics. I think I'd need to learn to swim before I actually took that role. No, look, I genuinely, I'm really not moving off the answer I gave, actually. Sounds like a Prime Minister's question time, but that I genuinely haven't ruled it in. I certainly haven't ruled it out, but my primary objective was to make sure that we had, the best possible council, the strongest executive board to complete the work that I sort of set out in 2015. The rest is, at the moment, mere detail, I'm afraid.
We'll go to Mark next.
Up or?
No, you can sit, it's fine.
Oh, no.
Yeah, thanks.
No, well, I saw you find the good way to ask for me to ask the question in English because there is no translation. Well, 2 questions. In the first time I prepare 3 questions, but he asks me the IOC question. When you spoke this morning about tough decision for the next term,
yeah.
What will be this tough decision? And the second one about Russia. Except the end of the war, before the games, is there a possibility to see the Russian athletes and Belarusian athletes coming back in athletics competition?
Okay, tough decisions. Look, the first 4 years of my mandate were really about making sure the ship didn't sink. I can't really class that up anymore. That it was, we were in a very, very serious position. We restructured the sport, we rewrote the constitution, and we put safeguards in place that we should have had. We didn't, and that was my responsibility to deal with. The next 4 years were really about dealing with all the issues that had been in the in-tray for far too long, that should have been dealt with. Issues around transfer of allegiance, dealing obviously with the ongoing issues of Russia, but then protecting the female category, reforming and streamlining the calendar, and getting my commitment to breathing life into our one-day events, one-day meetings. We've now got 162 Continental Tour meetings. All those things were really about the following 4 years, and we've made great progress. But I really want the next 4 years to be a focus on what is the product. What is it that is going to future-proof the sport for the next 30 or 40 years? And I don't kid myself, the reforms were a tough journey. But actually, I think on balance, people were pretty grateful that I took that on. The next 4 years were, really about just getting things that we should have done earlier in place. And so we have a very, very good platform. But, we weren't in a position to really focus on what we can now focus on because we have the foundation stones. And they're secure. So we really now can focus on competition. We can focus on what is it that we need to do to make sure that our competitions are interesting, are exciting, have pace and style and rhythm, fit into the lifestyles of young people, and to make sure that every time we have a World Championship and we have Diamond League and we have Continental Tour events, that they are focusing, featuring the best of the best. So we need to really make sure that we have a big, punchy global event every year. We've got the 2026 work in place for a 3-day festival of athletics. That's working its way through the system. I'd like to see that every year. We need to do a lot more to improve our area championships. They are a shop window for the sport in so many of our continents. And we need to make sure there's entertainment value and and it's data-based. It's not on a misplaced nostalgia or because, it's the whim of the president or the executive board. We must make decisions furnished on data. And that is what we've spent a lot of the last 4 years improving, our ability to really gather data. And we've just got to figure out what are the barriers. What are the barriers to doing this? And remove them. And if there is a risk that this sport has, it is that we are innately conservative. And, this isn't the next 4 years. It's not about tweaking, an extra round or one less round in the long jump or the 800 meters. There has to be a really significant shift in the way we present and the way people absorb our sport, both in the stadium and outside of the stadium. So that really, for me, is what the next 4 years looks like.
And Russia before Paris?
Unlikely. But look, I don't have a crystal ball. I follow world events in the same way that you all do. Our position is very clear. The council has made that position clear. The new council, I'm not going to speak for them in advance, but I would be very surprised if there was any shift in that position. And I think that we have certainty, and we've done it for the reasons of integrity of competition. And that is the position we are. We will of course monitor that situation. We have risk committees. We have working groups that will always be wanting to be across that. And what might the circumstances look like if there is any shift in this situation? But I have to say that looks unlikely at the moment, given where we are with the events in Ukraine.
Sean, next, then we'll come down to the front, and then I can't see anybody. It's dark or bright.
Hi, Sean Ingle, Guardian. I won't be standing. So it sounded very encouraging that athletics is fourth in some of the metrics you talked about. Can you just add a little bit to the context of that? Which sports are still ahead? Which have you jumped over? And you've talked about being radical now. Does that mean perhaps events being added, perhaps some even being taken away? Is everything on the table, essentially?
Yeah, we started some tracking work back in 2015, which was really for me to understand, to get an audit of roughly where we were. I'm not going to pretend it was the most in-depth tracking work. Nielsen, our research partners, are now very much more into that space. So look, on a good day, we were about 8th. On a not so good day, we were about 9th, and since then we've moved to number 4. The sports that we are still sitting behind, and that's an interesting one, is obviously football. 2 is running, and that's really separate from the specific track and field. But that doesn't surprise me. We've got over 1 billion people recognize that. And number 3 is swimming. So we need to make sure that we continue to drive forward. And on the other metrics, that's very interesting. I mean, for me, the one that is probably as important as any is that in the last 2 years, we are seen to have improved, have gained a greater or made greater strides in reputational value than any other sport out there. So look, we're moving in the right direction, but you don't take your foot off the pedal on this.
And we will make available Seb's speech, but also we'll be releasing our annual results a little bit later this afternoon, so it'll be in there.
And there was another one, Sean. Yeah, the table is full. We'll see.
Yes. No, down at the front, please.
You can hear me, right?
I can, yeah.
Follow me.
From Delhi in India. Want to know where protection of female athletics is concerned. You just spoke about protecting female category. How far have you reached? Because the recent European Human Rights Court did give a verdict. What is World Athletics stand currently on that? And would you want to take it to the next step, get the countries also to follow the same rules that World Athletics has got?
Well, I think there are 2 areas that I'm talking about here. I mean, safeguarding protecting and preserving the female category is very much around the transgender and the DSD regulations that we've tabled, and they remain absolutely in place. The EHCR report was really about the handling of the case within the Swiss justice system. That was not a judgment about World Athletics, and it was a very split set of judgments. So whether or not that progresses through to the Swiss Grand Chamber, that's time will see. But on the particular regulations that have been tabled, well, particularly around DSD and of course our position on transgender, that is fixed. The council will, of course, I can't bind the hands of my successors, but that is the position the council has taken. And on actual safeguarding, which is, I think, the second point of your question, yeah, we have done a great deal. We have a safeguarding policy in place. We have mandated that policy to be in place in all our federations throughout the course of this year. And that's a challenge. That might take slightly longer, but that is our ambition. We have a safeguarding working group. We have a very clear policy on this now. And it was just agreed through the council meetings just a couple of days ago that is now fully enshrined within the Athletic Integrity Unit as well. So we're in good shape, but that's something that is always has to remain under very firm monitoring conditions.
Hi, we'll go over here and then we'll come to you at the back. If the microphone could you put your hand up? Yeah, just follow me. Thank you.
Hi, Seb.
Hey.
The task force is breaking up this week, which in some days would be something to celebrate. What I was wondering, I know the stance on the war, but what's your sense of confidence that, when and if Russia ever is let back into your sport, that everybody will be competing on a level playing field from an anti-doping standpoint? I know the AIU sort of is now running the external stuff.
Yes, and that is a very important question. And ultimately, as I said throughout the whole process, the most important client group in all this were the athletes. You know, I had to, you know, when the task force, I set up an independent task force, and I think if you spoke to any members of that task force, they will tell you that I didn't micromanage or shift or nudge in any particular direction. And it is important that they remained independent. It is important that they took, you know, if there is any template in this, and I think as an international federation, we took the right decision, but we supported it with the work of the task force. We didn't just sort of close the door and say, well, you know, you're out. But so we did actually, we have worked probably more closely with the new RUSAF to get it to a position. And I was always very clear that we had to get through that position and bring it to the council back in March, irrespective of what the council might subsequently decide in a consequential amendment after that decision. And that was the right thing to do. And we still, through the AIU, continue to work with Russia to make sure that at the right moment, and those are other considerations now, that they can be reintroduced into a landscape where the clean athletes from, you know, the bulk of our member federations feel confident that we have systems in place that are going to protect their athletic competition and birthright, if you like. So, yes, it is really important, and that work will continue. The rest of it is, well, you know, we could all take very different views on that. But the one thing I've always wanted, and I think I take some pride from, is that whenever we've made a tough decision, we've always been able to stand behind process going forward. And the task force was a really good example of that. Nobody actually wanted to, you know, there were criticisms of the action we took, and that came from everywhere from, you know, other federations, even in the International Olympic Committee. But it was really important that we had a process that we were able to stand behind. And that's why I was able to so fulsomely thank Rune Andersen and his team this morning.
Thanks, Eddie. Gentlemen, sorry, you're completely in shadow, so I can't see you.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Eliud Palpal from the Hungarian Public Media. Hi. And as a Hungarian, I am, of course, very proud of the event we are looking forward to. And I'm very curious about the first impressions of the president of the World Athletics, and congratulations to your re-election. So what about Budapest and the World Championships? Are you satisfied with the work of the organizing committee? And what do you think about those more than 300,000 tickets which were sold already?
Look, we're in good shape. I sense that because I always quietly monitor the stress levels of my headquarters teams around me. When I see a few of them in the gym with me in the morning, I know that's a good sign. And, you know, nobody is, you know, they're working flat out alongside an outstanding local organizing committee. I have to say that this is one of the best local organizing committees we've worked with. It's very collaborative, it's ambitious. I went to see the president of your country just a couple of days ago, and she just wanted to convey and oozed excitement around these games. And my observations very quickly, when I walk around Budapest, I know that I'm in a World Championship city, and I'm in a city that feels that it really wants us here. And everything I've seen in the lead up, John Ridgen, our chief executive, has been on numerous site visits, reports back regularly that, yeah, every World Championships poses its challenges, but there's been a real desire to meet, you know, to find the navigable route through. And that has always been the case. And I've been here on visits as well, you know, in terms of, you know, various stages of the stadium. The stadium is a beautiful stadium. And I like the fact that it, again, is the conduit, in a way, for a really strong local legacy, both medical and residential. So that is why, you know, I said in the annual report today that athletics is uniquely placed to make these things happen. So all in all, you know, we have the athletes that are probably in the best shape of their lives. You only got to look at the world records in both Diamond League and Continental Tours to know that we have all the assets in place. So I will keep my fingers crossed, but the signs are looking good.
Thank you. Duncan, and then Mark will come back.
Duncan Mackay, Inside the Games. Congratulations, Seb.
Thank you.
Are you concerned, and what kind of message does it send, that 2 of your 4 vice presidents are from the 2 countries with the worst doping records?
Well, look, let me deal with that head on. My first few days of the new year was spent in Kenya. And they were spent in Kenya with the new president of Kenya, Mr. Ruto. They were spent in Kenya with every organization that matters, including criminal investigation authorities, all the medical organizations, the local police services, pharmacists, obviously the federation, the sports groups, the sports ministers. There is a real determination, evidenced by the $25 million that, on top of the efforts they're making, have been attributed to the next 5 years. So they absolutely understand the seriousness of that situation, and unlike, you know, we've just talked about Russia, but you know, this is a more complex environment, and they recognize that. The Athletics Integrity Unit, and I speak to them regularly on this because I effectively started the ball rolling back towards the end of last year, have now got people in place working alongside. I think it is inevitable, given the extra resourcing and the extra focus on the testing pool and the depth of the testing in that testing pool, that those numbers are probably likely to rise. I'd be actually slightly worried if they weren't, given the amount of resource that's being thrown at it. And I think that's inevitable. And I know the second country that you're referring to, I've spoken to the federation president there. I've also spoken to any number of organizations in there, and they too know that there are challenges that need to be met.
Mark. Sorry, Mark, put your hand up because they don't know who you are. Surprising that, but they don't.
Thanks. Franco Fava is not here, but I'm sure that when he will arrive, he will ask you a question about cross-country and to know if you have a good hope that cross-country will be back in the games in Los Angeles.
Yes, I do. And we have good discussions. Obviously, Los Angeles is important. We, as you know, Mark, we did look at the potential for that in 24 in Paris. For various reasons, particularly off the back of COVID and cost, it wasn't possible. But John has regular discussions with the sports teams in Lausanne, and I have a very good working relationship with the LA organizing committee. So yeah, we need to watch this space, but it's, you know, it's promising.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, lady at the back in the white jacket. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ruja Chisto. I'm representing Mondiner, the leading conservative online and weekly magazine. First of all, I would like to congratulate you, Mr. President, for your re-election. And you said that how important it is to reach the gender equity in the new council. And you want to be, with World Athletics, to be a leader for the international sporting world in those senses. What do you mean about that, and why do you think it's so important where we are at this point now?
I think it's important because I've grown up in a world where I've worked with women in so many different capacities. You know, if you look at my approach to the London 2012 Games, we had as many women in senior positions, and many of them in those positions for the first time in the Olympic movement. living embodiment, is sitting next door to me, the communications director from 2012, but we also had a sports director from 2012. We had legal counsel, we had some head of management and strategy planning, we had HR. I mean, I can go right the way through. It was, we met, we broke the glass ceiling in the Olympic movement. And I guess, look, this goes back to my own instincts. I've been very lucky to have competed in a sport where I never really thought about it being anything other on the field of play as 50-50. Women can do, pretty much everything now. And that wasn't always the case. It was in 1964 that women were able to run anything more than 400 meters. And I mean, I still to this day find it absurd that it took until 1984 for a woman to be able to run in an Olympic marathon. I don't want to move as slowly as the Olympic movement. It is really important that we continue to set the way through athletics. Why does it matter to me? Because I just know that if you have a gender-balanced organization, you will have better thinking. You have a better diversity of view. And look, I will be blunt about it. Had previous councils had more women on them, we might not have been dealing with some of the things we dealt with in 2015. And anybody will tell you in any academic or practical business examination that an organization that is diverse and inclusive will be an organization probably 15% better than an organization that isn't. And you don't just think about that as a line item or leaving money on the table. If we are going to attract more women into not just, the field of play, but into administrative roles and young people, they need to look at our organization and ask themselves a fundamental question. Does this organization reflect the world that I live in? And if it doesn't, they'll find something else to do. And I don't want to be that organization.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that is the last question, unless there's one more, because I know you've got a very shortened lunch break, and then we're back in Congress.
I really have, actually.
Okay, one last question. We'll take it from this gentleman with his hand up. Thank you. Wait, can you wait for the mic?
Mr. President, first congratulations, and you know that many people are looking forward to the appearance of a new superstar in the track and fields like Usain Bolt in the past. Do you really care about this question, and do you think there's no superstar right now? This situation is temporary. Thank you.
Well, yeah. No superstars. Try telling that to Sidney McLaughlin or Mondo Duplantis or the Ingebrigtsen. I mean, it's everywhere you look. I mean, the one thing I'm more optimistic about the future of our sport now based on the quality of athletes that are coming through. These championships are, probably the word litter is not the best way of describing them, but that they are going to add luster to these championships in the way that we haven't, for many, many years. Many of them are going to be around a long time. If I go back to Doha, I think something like 25% of the medalists were all under the age of 25. That's actually got slightly, I believe statistically, that's got slightly less. Yes, I do care about that, but I think in terms of the array of talent and the way that talent is breaking through, people like Noah Lyles and the people I've just talked about, I think we're in better shape than we've ever been. And look, nobody's ever going to replace Usain Bolt. They never replaced Muhammad Ali, but great boxers, great fighters came in behind. But they're of course special, magnesium characters. But if you ask me, are we in better shape to promote the sport with the range of talent that we've got now than just a few years ago? The answer is an unequivocal yes.
Thank you. And we've got our next press conference is on Friday at the stadium at 4 p.m. Yep, and it'll be with the local organising committee where we'll talk about all the great talent and what we're looking forward to. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. See you during the course of the championships. Lunch.